one thing I was thinking was, did you ever worry about scoreboard pressure? Did you ever worry about, I've eaten so many balls up here that I'm costing the team? Did you ever have those concerns?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody has concerns. Everybody fears something. Everybody goes through a period when they're worried about something. I don't think there's anybody that can stand at the end of their career and unless they want to be looked at as a fool and say, I never feared anything or I wouldn't worry about anything. I talk about it, and we talked about it there, and we talked about it on commentary, hitting mid-wicket. I mean, I had a big problem in a period of my career where I kept on hitting mid-wicket, and I had to find a way of not hitting mid-wicket. But that was because I used to plant my front foot all the time. Whereas I then started to learn to hit the ball through the offside, and having chats to a lot of the great Indian players, like we were talking about Rahul Dravid earlier, and then you start to become a little bit more experienced. But it's just the experience of playing and playing and playing and teaching your brain, I suppose, to do the right thing.
What about you? As an opener, then when the spin came on?
I mean, so different players. I was a rego player, and so therefore what we were talking about there, up there and on commentary was I would always look to play with the spin. I grew up being told, the coaching manual told me I've got to play with the spin. So if I've got left arm bowling over the wicket, I'm looking to get this side of the ball and hit there. But what we were talking about up there is Kevin and Dravid and these guys, they look to play against the spin. Now, to me, that was so foreign. And Kevin's point there about fearful, I was fearful of getting out. So I wouldn't be playing against the spin in case I'm getting a leading edge and getting caught. Now, to me, the coach, when I get back in the dressing room, coach says, why are you playing that shot? You're going to be going with the spin. But that's how the game's evolved a little bit. And brave players would play and see the game slightly differently.
Come on then, show us.
The one thing you can do, you can be brave if you practice it a hell of a lot, and you can tell all your mates, and your mates can watch you doing it in the nets a hell of a lot. And that came from when I played in Bangalore in 2008, one of the IPLs, 2008, 2009. I captained an incredibly A-list name, Dravids, Kumblays, Callis, Dale Staines, I mean Ross Taylor's, all these guys, a young Virat Kohli. And the way that Dravid used to practice, I mean, he used to throw the ball into the rough. He used to get somebody to throw the ball into the rough, no pads, and he just hit the ball through the offside, hit the ball through the offside. And I'm looking at this going, shall I try this? I mean, I tried it with a pad on, and then you become a lot more used to it without a pad, because you start knowing, listen, this is going to hit you, it's going to be sore. So you start using your bat. So you don't plant that front foot that I used to do. I used to plant the foot, all the stuff against Warren in 2005. Work it through the leg side, work it through the leg side, work it through the leg side. But you can get into a position where you don't plant this guy anymore, and as soon as he delivers it, you pick the line and you can make space.
So what do you mean? You don't plant, so, all right, you cleared your front leg there. How do you stop doing that?
How do you
stop doing that?
By picking length. But it's practice. It's about practice, practice, practice. And there's no secret recipe.
I think what's interesting there, you're a product of your environment a little bit. I mean, if I'd have played in the IPL in 2008 and I'd seen Dravid, I'd gone away and done the same thing. But we didn't really see that. And that's why we didn't practice it, because the practice sessions weren't that. Now, whether we should have, as individuals, taken it away and thought a little bit more about it and perhaps try to expand our own game individually, fair enough. But we didn't do that. Well, I certainly didn't. I played within the parameters that you grew up playing, and this is what was right, and almost this is what was wrong.
What I want you to show me, though, is the position you get in. Where can you get that head forward? How do you then work it against the spin? What is it you're looking to do?
It's about the position that you get yourself into, Bob. So you'd wait, and then I was always triggering. You trigger against anything. But my trigger was purely just to get me going, so that I could react. When I was playing badly against spin, I would plant. Once you planted this guy, you can't go anywhere. You can't move it. So the trajectory of the ball has it that this is going to come down on leg stump. If you're ready on middle and off, you're having to use your hands, and you're having to play around with the field. That in Test cricket brings this guy, and that guy in. In one-day cricket, you can get away with it. If you've got good hands, you can sort of hit it into the gap and bluff your way across to for a single. But after that period of play with the likes of Dravid, etc., and watching the great players do it, Dravid wrote me the most beautiful email. It explained the art of playing against spin. And ever since then, it was a whole new world. His key point was picking length. Picking length, wait for the ball. You can face Shoaib Akhtar at 100 mile an hour, which you did in Cape Town, and then you can face a spinner, and you can wait for a spinner to bowl the ball, and then make your decision.
What about Sangakkara? He says, as a tall man, not that he was, that tall people need to get a bit lower when they're playing against spin because that helps them to pick length. Did you do that?
Well, I wasn't getting lower, but I was making a conscious effort of looking for length as soon as the ball was delivered. So I would just wait. I'd get myself into the triggered position, and then I would consciously go looking for length. Looking for length, because if it's short, you want to play back, and you want to hit it off. If it's full, then it's kitchen sink time. Because if it's real full, then, like we said on comms again, we're not worried about mid-off and mid-on. All we're worried about is how far can we hit it. And that's, again, a recipe of what we've been practicing, though.
That's where it's so different to our area. Long on and long off were there to... If long on was in place, long off...
You're not allowed to take him on?
No. If you come down the wicket and hit it straight to long off, the dressing rooms are that way, you're going that way.
Yeah.
Because you're not welcome back there. Because there's a guy there to stop that. And that's how we... I'm not saying it's going to be too general here, because there would be players that wouldn't think that, but certainly how I felt, and certainly I know that's why we were averaging 250. Perhaps in a one-day international, 240 was a good score. I mean, you can imagine how different that is now. And part of that's because of the attitude of these guys and the attitude that we had. I mean, one-day cricket spin, when we played spin, we were thinking, I was thinking, reverse sweep is not really so much about scoring a boundary. It's because I want a man behind square, I want another man behind square, and I want deep point, who's in the game, but I want him behind. So now all of a sudden I've got three guys who are almost out of the game. So the rest of the game can take shape here. So I'm really manoeuvring the field. That's why I play these sort of dinky shots. Whereas these guys are thinking, hey, Kevin's just sort of swapping the hands and starting whacking it out of the ground. I mean, we would never have thought, I certainly would never have thought of that.
Now, for the two games we've done so far with you on commentary, every time the off-spinners come on, there's been a big gap behind the batsman, the right-hander, with the 45 who's not there. There's a square leg, a mid-wicket, maybe a drive man here, a sweep man, and you've said manoeuvre the field, so you try and get it behind there. How do you show us? You said it's a simple shot to play. Talk about the paddle sweep, then the sweep.
I mean, I might struggle with these trousers on.
You've got those socks on as well.
You're probably doing this to me on purpose, aren't you? You're trying to take the mickey out of me again.
The tats and the socks. I mean, seriously.
I can only apologise if these do tear on air. However, I mean, it's just, again, it's purely about run scoring. And it's about putting the pressure on. You're standing there, Bob, at extra cover. Your bowler is delivering the ball. It's about how do I execute my area to put pressure on you and the bowler. And it's very easy. I mean, it's not a difficult shot. Nick's talking about the craziness the guys play with. These shots. They're playing the ramps. They're playing the dill scoops. This kind of shot where you're just trying to manipulate the strike and you're just trying to dink it there. I mean, that's sometimes easier than a forward defence. It is, I mean, that there, you can wobble there. This kind of shot here, you're just getting on your knee and you're just going, you get real good strike on it and go for two. If it's in a good area, as we've seen Owen Morgan play, we've also saw Sam Billings the other night play. Yeah. If it's in a good area and you're looking to get one, if it does pitch in a nice area, you can hit it for four. So it's just about momentum. It's about not tearing your pants.
Right, the other thing as well we saw here, we did it on third man, about using your feet. So you were able to use your feet, and I always think the most important thing is the head position. Just show us your view on how you basically run down and smack the ball. Break it down for us.
Again, this is about understanding where the ball is. It's about getting into a good position, and it's also about keeping your head as still as possible too. I mean, that's an example. I think I had plenty against Pakistan. That was in Dubai. But it's about keeping your head as still as possible, even when you're coming down the wicket. Because as soon as this guy starts to wobble, you lose your fundamentals of picking length.
What about crossover, tap?
I mean, you
do that again, Keith.
Are we actually live here?
Come on.
There's no, that's individual. Right. That is completely down to the individual.
What worked for you?
What worked for me is keeping it simple, watching the ball, getting down, and then just striking. I mean, going inside out, guys like Mahela Jayawardene and Tendulkar and Virender Sehwag that played those kinds of shots. I remember batting with Sehwag in an IPL game in Centurion. Sunil Narayan was bowling crazy spin. It was turning at Centurion this way, he was getting it to go that way. And I had no idea, so I just resorted to the sweep shot. Sehwag came down to me and said, leave the ball to me. I said, what do you mean leave it to you? He said, just give it one, I'll enjoy this, I'll play. Now, in the height of your career, you're like, no, I'll do this. So it comes down to the other end, I sweep on, I get a top edge, it goes down to fine leg. He starts hitting Narayan over extra cover for six.
How?
And I still to this day do not know and do not understand how confident he is that I think is playing one of the most difficult shots against a wonderful bowler bowling it both ways. But that again, mindset.
Yeah, mindset. Do you know what? Hearing you talk as if it's so not straightforward, but the way you did it was so confident in doing it. You know, hitting down the ground, range hitting was something that we didn't really do. And you watch your era, and you watch them now. I mean, I sat the other day watching before the first game, and Banton was just, you know, do it right hand. He just stand. I think James Foster was just throwing him little offers, and he was just going, boom, and it was landing over here, over our heads from out there. And they do it virtually every ball. Now we wouldn't have thought about doing that. But you guys, I remember Klusner, '99 World Cup, Bob Woolmer had Lance Klusner at Edgbaston, and I remember watching them practice, and he was just doing that. Lance Klusner, like boom. Boom, boom. I thought, that's pretty good. Why have we not been doing that all these years? I'm sure that must have had a big influence on how you guys have played.
It gives you the confidence to know you can do it in the game. That's all it is. You take a guy out there and you'd load up a load of people, walk out onto the wicket, right next to the wicket, and then you will judge how hard you have to ping it for it to go to the boundary. And then you'll just check the wind direction, and if a wind, I mean, this wind is favouring it beautifully here to slog it into the deep that side, but I mean, in the Caribbean, you go to the Caribbean with big winds, you wouldn't hit it into the wind, you'd hit it with the wind. There's all sorts of things, but simple things, practice, practice, practice.
I'd imagine as well, batting at the death would have been at the start of your one-day career, would have been completely different to how they're doing it now, because you had one ball and the ball was reverse swinging and stuff. So what were your views when you're playing against someone running in, bowling, reverse swinging Yorkers? What's your option?
Well, again, we had 4 men outside, so you often had one man there, one man there, one man there, long off, and you had one other option, either third man, fine leg, or long on. And almost every game you play, the end of it used to be one of those options. So what I developed was, and I think that it was a good option in the end, was to get on one knee and do that. Now you've got to do that against Wasim Akram and Waqar Younis, so it's quite fraught with danger, but you've got a pretty good idea, as I said at the start, you've got a pretty good idea where it's going to land. And so if you can get out in front and do that, so then the guy there has to go back at front. Nah, just try and get any bat on it. I wasn't good enough to start directing it, I was just trying to get bat on it, and most of the time you get lucky and either go one side of him who's up. As soon as you do that once, captain says, up you come. So then he goes back out. So then you're basically saying, well, I've either got an easier shot there or that. So once you've learned to do that, you then get the easier option.
You used to use your crease though, didn't you? Didn't you used to go back in your crease when you were trying to bat towards the end of an innings?
Yeah, well, I mean, the bowlers are trying to hit your popping crease. So you want to try and give yourself as much of a chance to get some sort of elevation, even if they hit their perfect spot. And I suppose that's the method in the madness with that one. It's literally just trying to, if a bowler's here, if you're standing on your popping crease, the bowler's trying to hit the popping crease, a real good delivery, you're jamming it out, and you're jamming it out in that kind of direction. You give yourself a little bit more movement back, you can maybe get under it and
feel for the bowlers though these days. You know, you think of Waqar and Wasim with that reversing ball, old ball, you can't really hit it. Now they've got relatively new ball. Difficult.
Very.
Just quickly, just show us how you do the switch hit. Just give us a switch hit, come on. Bob. There you go, you can watch it here first.
Here we go. So it's fairly simple again, talking about, well, fairly simple for me only because of the fact that I played a hell of a lot of squash when I was a kid. And there, that is just a backhanded shot, and I used to call it the tram line, playing a backhanded shot down the tram line. You get into position, you switch it. I think the most difficult part of that shot is timing. So timing the jump right to be able to get into a position to whack it. And I think that's probably the hardest thing. The shot in itself wasn't difficult because I used to stand in the nets, and I just used to hit ball after ball this way. But the difficulty came was when you were trying to jump into a position to play it.
Not enough when you stand this side of it trying to do that, let alone when you've got to become right-handed to left-handed.
And guys play it so much better now anyway. Warners and all of them. I mean, this Banton kid, Joss Buttler, freak shows.
But is it all as well? Because if you look at the strike rates, 90, yours, there's no, I mean, you're a very good player.
I was hoping we were going to run out of time.
71.5, Johnny Bairstow 104.3, Jason Roy 107.3. Is that just about the 2 white balls? That must have made such a difference.
I think it's got something to do with it, the type of players who are all the stuff we've just talked about, being a product of your environment. You know, I wasn't someone that would take these guys on, and when that is going to be the case, your strike rate is going to lower itself. I mean, 71 wasn't a great strike rate, but it was a decent strike rate in the era I played in.
Well, look, let's hope you've learned something about one-day batting, and we're going to find out. We'll see 2 of the best, certainly, with England coming out to bat in a minute.